As a creative freelancer, it often feels like most other creatives are having a way easier time getting to where they want to be in their careers than you're currently having. Maybe they live in a city with more opportunities, they already have connections to successful people in their industry that have given them a very helpful leg up, or they just have more money from their rich-ass parents to invest in the latest and greatest gear. For a lot of creatives, we can feel pretty far behind with where we want to be, and we can easily fall into a pattern of blaming outside factors for all of the slow progress we feel that's being made towards our goals. I can relate. I grew up in a small British town in the north of England, raised by a single mother who wasn't a creative and certainly didn't have the funds to help me buy all that expensive camera gear that I wanted. But I did a bunch of other things that didn't rely so much on my finances that helped me get to where I am today. Being able to work as a freelance YouTube editor and videographer, which is a job that has supported me financially for the last 6 years and continues to do so. And in this video, I wanted to share the actions and mindsets I took to get to this position. Do more than other people are doing. There's going to be so many people way ahead of you as a creative with, the skills that they've acquired, with the amount of time and energy that they've actually put into getting good at their discipline. Therefore, how the hell are you going to be able to compete with them? What do you have that can make you get chosen over them versus you saying like, hey, I'll do it for free, or I'll do it for 90% cheaper than that person? Even though that is one strategy, you can't keep that up in the long term. Therefore, work on your interpersonal skills. Yeah, it sounds like way easier said than done to, make yourself better as a conversationalist, work on your ability to be likable. What does it mean to be likable, right? How do you also work on this? Social skills are quite a weird one because it feels weird to be able to be taught to learn this skill, or to somehow figure out how to get better at talking to people and just working on your own personality when you're in conversations with people. How do you work on this? Well, oddly, especially in this day and age, one of the easiest ways is just talking in front of a camera, and you can do this during the act of trying to get work in the particular creative industry that you want to work in. Because what I did was early on, I just sent custom video messages to people. I knew that there was a bunch of other creatives who had left uni at the same time as me, who were trying to find work within the film industry. And I knew that these big companies in Manchester, which was the biggest city that I live near, they would be getting emails from other people like me being like, hey, can I get on a film set with you? Or can I have a trainee opportunity? So I was like, how the hell am I going to compete with all of these people? There's obviously going to be people who are better than me. What can I do to stand out above all of them? And I realized, hey, why don't I just send them a custom video message? And that's literally what I did. I would set up my crappy camera at the time and say, hey, I'm Adam. This is what I do. I showed made some little overlays of some of the stuff that I shot at university. And I said, I'd love to help out and chat some more about how I can, possibly get involved and help on productions that are going on. And you'd be surprised how much this worked. I think doing this plus sending an email and putting the actual video in the email and sometimes a clickable link to that actual Vimeo clip, it works so much more. And I feel like it helped me just stand out way more above everybody because I wasn't lying about where I was at, right? I wasn't trying to sell my skills because I didn't really have that many at the time. I was just trying to sell me as a person, hey, I'm a normal person. I want to help out as much as possible. I'm really enthusiastic about getting on film sets, so can I do that? And a lot of times people would say, obviously I had rejections and people sometimes didn't respond, but more times than not, people would either say they didn't need any help at the time, or they didn't have any opportunities at the time, but they were thankful that I sent them a video, they really appreciated it, or I would get an opportunity from it. And I genuinely think it was just because I put in that extra bit of effort. I did more than the average person, and that just helped me stand out above people who were obviously better than me, and they didn't get the opportunity when I actually did, just because I sold myself and worked on my ability to humanize myself over video. If you really want to push yourself, you can even go even further by just physically going into companies without an appointment. I literally did this sometimes where I would go into a production company and say, hey, can I speak to one of the producers here? And then they'd say who are you? And then I'd explain, oh, my name's Adam. Just I was wondering if there's any trainee positions or any projects that I could help out on in any way. I've just graduated. And yeah, sometimes that would work, and sometimes they'd be they're busy, so come back another day. And I didn't live in the big city at that point, so it's not that very easy for me to just come back every day to pester them. But that was something that really helped initially boost my confidence, because nothing bad ever happened. The worst that could happen is nothing, and I'd be back to square one. But also I wasn't back to square one because I would have that adrenaline dump of being really nervous about doing this thing and then doing it, and then either getting a really good result just because I worked through that fear. And I always just felt some success for like pushing through that. I don't know what you might be thinking. Oh, it's easy for you to say, Adam, you extrovert. I'm really shy and I'm not going to be able to do that. I was very shy as well. I was literally so shy that when I was younger that I'd go into a video game store with my brother and I would be so nervous to even ask the guy at the counter, hey, when does this new video game come out? So I would ask my brother, hey, Yusuf, can you ask the guy like when that new game is coming out? Just because I was so shy like that I was going to ask a question and he was going to go, huh, you don't even know when that game comes out? Which is ridiculous. Like he was never going to say that. But that's how shy I was. Like I was not somebody who was naturally extroverted reaching out to people. This was a skill that I had to consciously, like in a very difficult way, like it wasn't easy, like really build, because I just knew that going through this, pain, it's not really pain, discomfort would actually lead me to so many opportunities that I never would have gotten unless I went through it. So it was worth the discomfort for me, even though it was really hard. And I feel like for you, if you're especially shy, it's something that you can either accept, hey, I'm really shy and there's nothing I can do about it, or you can really try and take these little steps to face your fear. I think talking in front of a camera is a really good way to do it because, you don't ever have to publish it. You can really practice listening to what you sound like. And it's going to sound horrible at first. You're going to be like, I sound so weird. And then eventually you're going to realize, okay, that's how I sound. Yep. And being comfortable with that will really help, talking to real people or reaching out to real people and having them hear you speak in a nervous way, but you're still doing the thing, and that's what really matters. I don't know about you, but I personally feel like I would rather give it all I can towards like a dream that I want to have. And then if it actually doesn't work out, I don't know if I can be that disappointed in myself. And that really trickles all the way down to reaching out to potential clients or people you want to work with. I'd rather do as much as I could to try and get their attention, within reason. I'm not going to find their address and stalk them or anything, but maybe that could be one step that I could have tried, but I didn't. But I feel like if I do as much as I can and I don't get any response or get rejected, then I can only be proud of myself in that moment that I did as much as my actual, knowledge was of what could be done and pushed through as much discomfort that, I could really handle to try and get their attention or to reach out to them or to do something to try and work with them. And then if there's no response, then can I really be that angry at myself? Yeah, I can be disappointed, but I know that I can actually be proud of myself and say, hey, you took a lot from reaching out to that client. You did as much as you could, and don't worry, there's going to be another one that's going to come along. If you keep this mentality and mindset of and actions of pushing yourself a little bit, then it's only bound to result in stuff that will be really positive for my creative career. I literally did this with one of my main YouTube clients that I collaborate with, where initially they didn't even respond to a message from one of their close friends who I befriended. And then I was like, okay, well, if they've not responded to that, surely it's over. And then I was like, wait, the last thing that I could possibly do is send them a custom video message being like, hey, I'm Adam, blah, 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 this is who I am. And if they don't respond to that, honestly, there's nothing I could have done. And I did that, and turns out a few days later, finally they responded, got on a Zoom call with them. And then, yeah, they've been one of my main YouTube clients that I've been working with for the last 5-6 years. So you never know. What that extra effort in to push can lead you towards. And just remember that when you're young in your creative journey, or actually young in your age, time is your ultimate resource. You can mess around with all of these things with, trying to find clients in these different routes and these different methods, probably some methods that I've not even spoken about that you guys might have tried, because everything's kind of new and interesting and you're figuring stuff out. And that in the initial phases can really carry you through the times where you're questioning it all, because you're just constantly, leveling up your personality and interpersonal skills in a lot of ways. And especially if you've not got a family to support and feed, which I assume you won't if you've just graduated from uni. Probably. So when you get those inevitable rejections, just remember that there's always another client around the corner who is very eager to work with you. You've just got to actually put in the effort to put yourself out there so that they realize you exist. Another thing that really helped early on for me was just to have acceptance of my life circumstances. You can't change the cards that were dealt with you in life. Some people were already born into a cool creative family and, you know, had ins with people within the industry. And, you know, that was just such an easy path for them to get a head start to where they want to be. Some people lived in the biggest or best city with all the cool creative stuff going on and opportunities. And other people like me, as I alluded to in the intro, lived in a northern town an hour away from the biggest city. Didn't have anybody who was like a creative or anybody who was following the same path as me. And that did lead to some jealousy, I'll be honest, especially in the social media age. You see people who are doing way better than you at the same age you're at. And you're like, how did they get ahead when I'm still not where they are, right? And that can easily lead to this little hum of anger every day, or bitterness. And self-doubt is probably the strongest emotion and probably the most detrimental one that you can hold. But eventually I started to kind of accept that there's nothing I can do to change this. So why even hold on to it in the first place? And, you know, as much as I didn't choose to be born into the situation that I was, those people who were born into really good opportunities or like better life situations than me, they also didn't choose that either. And if I got, you know, if my daddy was Martin Scorsese, why wouldn't I go on film sets with him and learn the craft? Like, it doesn't make sense how as creatives, obviously, if you're born into opportunities where you could take advantage of certain advantages, you would. Like, why wouldn't you? You'd be dumb not to. But there's also a lot of advantages to having to go through the grind as a poor creative. That for us, discipline and, you know, resilience that we get built up from all the trials and tribulations, and, you know, having to maybe get an hour's train to the nearest city, or maybe having to get a job in a big city just so you can be closer to the action of what's going on in your creative industry. All these things are going to initially make you feel like you're more behind at the start, but then in the long run, you're actually going to get way further ahead than most of those rich people, just because you've really built that humbleness, hopefully, all these interpersonal skills that you have to build way more than the average person, because to even get a foot in the door, you have to do so much knocking on doors versus, you know, the door was already open for all of these people. So you're unknowingly building loads of skills that will only help you in every single step of your creative journey. And it's really going to be hard to realize that now, like how much all of these things are helping you in the long run. But when you look back in a few years, you're going to be like, holy crap, that was so influential on my ability to, you know, feel resilience, to feel the strength that when times are tough, I'm questioning things. I know that good times are only around the corner if I just, you know, keep the momentum going. Holding on to bitterness and jealousy just isn't going to help you. And also, you start to realize that these people who have more than you, not all of them, but many of them are actually really nice. Like, I think being born with not a lot of money, you have this kind of negative association with rich people all being a-holes. But I actually realized that I've met a lot of people who are, you know, were brought up in really good families and had a lot of things I didn't have growing up, a lot of opportunities when they first started, you know, delving into their creative interests. They ended up being really nice people and actually very helpful to me and didn't look down upon me, didn't see me as lesser. And if you're friends with those people or collaborators with those people and you're just nice to them, which hopefully you will be at this point, if you're just, you know, just accepting and the fact that I'm a poor creative, I need to navigate this, then they're actually going to just help you anyway, because they're going to become your friend and they're going to get you on, you know, give you opportunities that come their way that they want to pass off to you. And also, like, their success is your success, because if they get ahead quicker than you and you know this person, you're going to be able to model what they did. And if you're like close to them to, you know, have conversations with them, they're gonna just tell you stuff. If you're like, hey, how did you do this thing, or how did you meet that guy? They're gonna say, oh yeah, like I met him at this thing and I sent him a message and he actually knows this person. And then like they could just give you an in with this company or person or group that you want to network with or meet up with anyway, learning from the life path that they're going down, this particular friend or friends. It's only going to help you. It's like the old quote of high tides in the harbor raise all boats, and you just want to be in the harbor. You want to be in the bay, and everybody else's success will raise up the tides, and then you will be raised up as well, because you're in the circle, as it were. And having jealousy towards these people is just going to make you act weird around them. versus you're just somebody who, you know, is accepting of everybody's situation, including your own. You can then meet people who, you know, clearly have way more advantages of you, and, you know, you can accept that. I wish I had his life a little bit, but don't let that become bitterness towards yourself or them, because that's only going to rub off on your personality and people are going to smell it and they don't want to be around people like that. So don't be like that as much as you can try. It's hard. Took me a while to get over this, but now it's very rare for me to feel like really intense jealousy towards others. And if I do feel it, it's a very short amount of time, and then eventually it just disappeared because I just crack on with what really matters, which is focusing on making progress in my own creative journey. Next thing to note is how much you should be leveraging all of the free tools and resources that now exist. I might sound like a granddad to some. I'm not that old, okay? I'm 32, and I was lucky that when I was young, I had resources like YouTube, so I could actually watch other filmmakers do their thing and kind of, you know, learn from them and have some motivation to know, oh, there's cool geeky filmmakers out there who are also wanting to be filmmakers. However, now it's a bazillion times better. The iPhone that you have is so good to be able to shoot short films, or there's loads of free software like Canva if you're a designer and you want to learn, like, you know, Adobe type stuff, and you can't afford an Adobe subscription because it's expensive. There's way more resources out there than ever before, and really utilize them. Gear isn't the bottleneck anymore. It's not like, you know, you could only be a successful writer if you had that awesome typewriter that your old granddaddy passed down to you. It's not like that anymore. Like, gear is just not the bottleneck. It's all about ideas that you try out, and then over time getting better and refining and just experimenting way more. And honestly, now social media is the best tool that you can actually use to experiment with your ideas and to put them out in the world, which is why on this channel I often bang on about how every single creative freelancer needs to have a YouTube channel, or at least some kind of social media presence where you show people, like, behind the scenes, what you're up to, and hopefully, or eventually, once you can practice the skill of being on camera, you can actually put yourself physically on camera and show what you're going through in your creative journey. I just think humanizing yourself in this way, or in any way as a creative, is only a good thing, and it'll just make people more attuned to, like, you as a person and want to work with you. And even if they don't want to work with you, they just want to follow in your journey and will ultimately be inspired by the fact that you have the confidence to put yourself out there when many people wish they could. And also, we can be such perfectionists about, like, our standards, and it's only until we show other people what we're making and they share their opinions on that you really know how good or bad you are in your journey in terms of, like, your skill level. It's crazy because I was so strict with the stuff that I post on Instagram a few years ago. And then I remember going through my old photography stuff that I used to do with, like, you know, street photography stuff when I had my nice Fuji camera, and I was going through a period of heavily doing street photography. I found a photo and I was like, I didn't post this photo, you crazy. I posted it on a different Instagram account because I was like, it's not good enough to go on my main Instagram account. I look at it and I'm like, this photo is amazing. How did my former past version of my brain think that that wasn't good enough? And I did a whole Instagram post posting that photo and explaining, like, how the hell did I think this was a not good enough photo? And I posted it and I got a lot of comments saying, like, this photo is awesome. And it's just an example of, like, your own perfectionism or your concern for what is good enough will change, and the quickest way to make that change is to just allow people to see it and share their opinion on it. Unless you have a terrible social circle full of horrible people, you're not going to get hate. You're just not. Like, it's very rare for you to get hate early on when you start posting stuff. But posting stuff is just the quickest way to kind of start to plant the seeds of changing your own perception of how good or bad your skills are. And ultimately, the best situation that you want to be in is, you know, you can really believe yourself that you're better than your previous self once thought you were. And that's very much how I feel now about a lot of things with creativity, is that I was just so much of a perfectionist. My standard was so high that it would stop me posting more often than I should. And honestly, I don't have a lot of regrets in life, thankfully. I know a lot of people do. My only real regret is that I should have started this YouTube channel 10 years ago. I should have been at film school day one and just documented my journey going to university and being like, day one of university. I wish I did that. That would be so cool to look back on, and I'm sure this channel would be way bigger than it is now if I kept up with it in the long term. So if you're a bit anti-social media, you're a bit like, oh, I feel weird about posting, I feel weird about, like, sharing what I'm doing, don't feel weird. We want to see this. Like other creatives are going to support you in your journey of sharing what you're doing, because we're all on the same journey to some degree. Like we all have a shared experience of trying to navigate the world as creatives, and we're all going to help each other. We're all going to motivate each other. And yeah, you'll get like one little troll here or there, but just time to off. Like who cares about him? Like the main thing is you humanizing yourself, putting yourself out there, sharing in your journey. And even if it's just for you to look back on, try and have that belief that this is only going to be beneficial to you in the future and you're not going to regret it. Another thing that I did as a poor creative, quite a lot, maybe you've done it as well, is work for free or do freebies initially. Freebies in the beginning are so worth it. Like you just get your foot in the door, you get to meet interesting people within the creative field that you want to be a part of, or you get to work on projects and be given opportunities with a clear deadline. I think that's the best thing about freebies, is that, you know, if you want to do a project yourself, you can kind of just do it whenever, especially if you're a young creative, you live at home, like there's no deadline. You can write that script, you can do that piece of art, you can make that track whenever you want. There's no one holding you accountable. But if you do a freebie for somebody, you can, you know, there's at least somebody holding you accountable, being like, hey, have you got the first draft done yet? Hey, when can I check out the cool photo collage that I need for my website that you said you were going to do? Just having that client, even though they're not paying you, you know, give you that little nudge and you feel like you're doing it for somebody else, helps keep you on track. And it might not be the funnest projects in the world, you know, it might not be like your dream project, but it doesn't matter, because you're going to be building skills. You're going to be meeting people who you can create a good impression on, which should eventually lead you to paid work. And also you'll go away with something that you have for your portfolio that you can actually show off that you can do what you're advertising yourself as being able to do. Of course, you should set your own principles or eventually figure out whether a client is just taking advantage of you by constantly asking for free work with the promise of, hey, one day I'll pay you. That does happen. People get taken advantage of. The problem with us creatives is that we would do what we do for free anyway. And then the position to be in where like you're getting paid for it, even if it's a tiny amount of money, you're like, oh my God, I can make a living from this thing that I love and would do for free already. That's amazing. Some clients can take advantage of that and they see it. So be a bit cautious to spot clients who might just be purely taking advantage of you and they're actually not going to be beneficial to you because they don't know anybody else in the creative field. So you're actually not going to get that much back from them in the long run. You'll get better at this the more you work with people. You'll be able to sniff them out like a drug sniffer dog eventually. But a lot of times clients are not like these, you know, they're generally worth working for, and you're going to end up meeting people through them that are going to be getting you those bigger paid gigs, even if, you know, the freebie client isn't somebody who is the person who can actually give you any money in the long run. Also, when you work with these people, just try to remember that you have an invisible reputation and you don't want to make it a bad one. In all creative circles, everybody kind of knows everybody. I remember in Manchester, like in the film industry there when I was working in it, everybody kind of knew everybody to some degree. Like we'd all be aware of people who were working within our sphere. And if you're just known as an idiot or an arrogant definitely going to censor that, you're just going to miss out on opportunities, and you didn't even realize that the reason why you weren't getting hired as much is because you were just known as a bit of an idiot. So just be really cautious about, even if it's a freebie, are you just a moody person working around people? Are you late? Do you just have like just a bad vibe when you're collaborating with other people? Because all these things really do matter. And the hardest thing about it is that this reputation is invisible. You might not even be aware. You've been building up this reputation for yourself that is not a good one, and one that if you found out about it, you'd be like, oh my God, that's what people think of me? Crap, I wouldn't hire myself either. People want to work with people that they find likable. And honestly, even I would rather hire somebody that is likable, eager, and, you know, good enough or can get better, versus somebody who is the best in the world standing behind a camera filming me for a YouTube video, but is a complete asshole. I would be like instantly, I'm not going to work with that guy again. Go. Out of my house. Next, don't ignore career paths that might actually be more suited for you. I thought that my path was going to be working my way up in the film industry as a cinematographer, leading me towards shooting massive music videos for big artists, and then eventually, maybe one day getting that Oscar, maybe. But that didn't happen because I had the opportunity to work for a YouTube channel as a videographer, and that completely changed the whole trajectory of my creative journey, to be honest with you. And also it helped me reconnect with what I actually wanted to do and didn't realize it, which was my early love for YouTube and watching YouTube channels and, you know, really being heavily influenced by all of the early YouTubers that I was consuming. And weirdly, I ended up working in this whole YouTube industry. And now I'd much rather be editing and shooting for other YouTube channels and also growing my own into something sustainable rather than going down the very traditional, you know, filmmaker route that I was on before. It is good to be focused on some goal and some path and, you know, to have kind of steps towards achieving what you want to achieve. But I think if you're too focused on things being a certain way and only being that way, you might be blind to opportunities that just are going to be nicer to you and are just going to be more attuned to the kind of personality that you want and the kind of creative future that you want as a job and as a thing that you want to be making a living from. For me, it was really hard to, you know, go on Instagram one day and eventually see my Instagram bio that said like, I make music videos. And for me to be like, I don't actually make a lot of music videos anymore. And then to change that to this new identity of like, I work in YouTube. That's my thing. Luckily, YouTube is cool. All kids kind of want to do YouTube. So it's not like I was writing something that I was ashamed of in a way. Maybe if I said I was a YouTuber 10, 15 years ago, it would have been a different thing. People are like, you're a YouTuber? Pfft, loser. But now YouTube's cool. It's a cool industry to be a part of. So that definitely helped. But also I think if it's, you know, if it's not YouTube that you're working with, if there's some other industry or other path that you can go down to, you know, make a living from your creative discipline, don't completely ignore that. Give it a chance because it could lead towards a lot of experiences and learnings that you can take away from it, and potentially also money, because we all need money as creatives, especially if you're a poor creative like I was. And having those funds will allow you to do, you know, the bigger, better creative stuff than you could have otherwise. And you would have learned lots of new stuff along the way. Musicians come to mind where, you know, if you wanted to make music or be a musician, you know, people say like, you got to get gigs, you got to just make music and everything. Now there's loads of musicians who just make passive money because they have their songs hosted on things like Epidemic Sound and Audio, like these software subscription music libraries. For those musicians, do you really think they're like, oh, I'm not a proper musician like Ed Sheeran? They're like, maybe that was their dream and maybe that is still their dream. But the fact that they've opened up like their awareness and perception to different ways to make money within their fields, and hopefully they don't feel like sellouts because of this, I highly doubt. I'm sure some of them have wrestled with this to some degree, but that is awesome that there are so many different avenues that you can go down and explore to make money and to support yourself from your creative discipline. Because the longer you take to do this, the more it's going to get clogged up by all the creatives that actually took advantage of the opportunity. I feel the same with YouTube, right? There's a lot of filmmakery, creative people on YouTube. I wish I did this 10 years ago. Would have been way easier. I probably would have had 100,000 subs by now, maybe. But there's no better time to actually start doing it other than now. Especially because the online space is intersecting way more with all of these traditional creative paths that used to be the only routes that we could go down. You know, I instantly think of Bo Burnham, who, you know, started out as a YouTuber and then made a whole Netflix documentary, kind of very heavily influenced by what he was doing very early on YouTube. People like Peter McKinnon, who was a photographer by trade and a videographer, and now gets paid big money to shoot commercials for people like DJI. That all of these traditional and kind of new models and platforms for creatives to live on and exist on are all merging now. So if you're really thinking that you have to follow the path of this person that you were heavily inspired by and you think that's the only route, it's not. And it's just not a smart decision to only go down that one route. And yeah, like I said, these more new routes require a bit more bravery because, you know, you have to learn all these new skills of talking on camera. You can't just be an artist hiding behind the scenes, making the art and being like, here. I mean, you kind of can do that to some degree, but I personally think it's nicer to be able to like be an all-round creative where you have the ability to talk on camera. You have the ability to be in front of the camera and to share what you're doing. And then if you really want, you have times where you can hide behind the camera and just show your art and then be like, look, check out this cool thing that I made. These things are forever skills and they're only going to get more and more valuable as time progresses. Like, it's constantly every single year getting to be way more of a valuable skill to be able to like put yourself out online and to have your awareness open to these different paths and monetization opportunities as a creative. And by taking advantage of them, it's just going to open up way more chances and opportunities for you to use your skills to have a much more sustainable and enjoyable creative journey. One really important point, and arguably the most important point to some degree, is you want to try and enjoy the struggle. this whole struggle of navigating the world as a creative freelancer, navigating times where you barely have any money, navigating times where you get rejected every single day, rejection, and you start to question, is this all worth it? As good as it feels to eventually have the successes and to, see progress in what you're doing, you should try and savor these difficult times. I honestly look back with a lot of fondness over the times when I was getting my hours train journey into Manchester to work as a trainee on a film set for like £100 a day. I look back at all the times when I was working from my small bedroom in my mum's house, watching tutorials and trying filmmaker editing techniques that I just learned about from a YouTuber. All of these times are now nostalgic to me. As much as I'm not like, I wish I could be teleported back there and swap my life now with that. Like I don't feel like that. But it is a really cool and interesting to be able to look back and know how all of my actions led me to where I am today, in a way that I'm super proud of myself for, pushing through these difficulties that have got me to where I am today, and how much I've changed since then, how much I've grown purely because of the actions that I put myself through, and the confidence and the risk taking and all of these things that led me to being here right now. Because I feel like if you can't enjoy or find some level of enjoyment in these struggles, you're just projecting into the future hope towards a time that will be better, and then you will be happy, or then you will feel satisfied. And I don't think life works that way, because if that's all you're focusing towards, you're gonna actually not really take the juice out of what you're going for. You're not really gonna be able to fully experience it if you're just so avoidant of the emotions and the anxiety and whatever else may be coming up for you in this moment during this experience of your creative journey and the life that you're living now. I also think if you don't find some enjoyment from all the struggles, you're gonna end up quitting earlier than you probably should have. I absolutely adore this illustration right here by Daniel Forex. It's just such a good example of what it feels like to be a creative freelancer on this journey. And all the times where you feel like you're kind of going back and you're like, is that the right decision? Or maybe I should quit. But ultimately, if you just stick at the path and learn from your mistakes and push through and, really take stock of what you can do better at and what you've done, what you've been doing good, you will eventually get towards a goal. It might not be the exact same goal you thought you would be at or in the exact same place, but it's going to be a goal, and it's going to be something that you're going to be happy with, as long as you've kept moving forward and been honest with yourself of where you're at with life and what you actually want from it and your creative journey. So whatever you might be going through right now, whatever struggles, whatever kind of anxiety or things that you've gone through, I've probably gone through them as well. and I'm not like some, I'm not some guy who's like, I've gone through all of that and life is perfect. I'm still on some position in this path as well. Maybe a bit further ahead than some of you guys watching. It's still a journey that we're all on continuously as creatives. No matter how much money we have, no matter where we're at, being a poor creative does have different unique challenges. But with some of these lessons that I've told you, I really hope it opens your eyes to some of the things that you can do right now that doesn't rely on money. It doesn't rely on, having been born with certain advantages. There's still a lot that you can do to really thrive and create a life for yourself as a creative that, looking back, you're going to be nostalgic upon, and you're going to be so thankful that you really pushed through. Younger version of yourself that had all these doubts, all these anxieties, all these worries, and you made the best of it with what you could, and you ultimately ended up building a life for yourself, or putting yourself in a position that you can be truly proud of yourself because you made life work as a creative, and you're making money from doing that. Because isn't that the dream? What could be better than that? To spend our life, or most of it, doing what we actually really, really love for a living. I can't think of many things better than that. If maybe now I've planted a seed in your head about wanting to document your whole creative journey online, you should definitely check out this video on my channel where I share why every single creative freelancer needs to have their own YouTube channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.